Welcome to the Chatterbox with your host, Nicole Parchani. Today's guest I had the honor of meeting through Microsoft's summer internship program. Christopher Cha is a Maryland native studying computer science and engineering. Over the summer, Christopher and I engaged in many conversations about history, culture, film, and the outdoors that I just had to bring him on the podcast. In this episode, we chat about his journey to Microsoft, our shared love for ancient civilization, the rise of national parks, what is the meme word of the year, aliens, multiverses, and more. How are you doing today? How has the day been so far?
I'm doing pretty good. Probably woke up for the first time in a long time at 8:30 a.m. It's like this summer, it's like my weekends are just thinking, you know what? I don't have to wake up for anything. It's the weekend. And then for
I
some reason, I
feel
woke up at 8:30 and I thought, you know what? I'll start the day early today. So yeah,
more power
it's a
to
good
you.
change. Yeah.
Have you during the semester, are you do you have early classes usually, or are you a more of a night owl? Night owl? Yeah, I wanted to say that right. Night owl.
I think when I didn't have the choice, like, cause I mean, I'm sure everybody's gone through that. You're a freshman on campus, you're excited, and then you realize your schedule is horrible because you just don't have any choice for like 101 classes.
I
The
feel
professors, they'll put them at like,
everything's full.
yeah, everything's full. Professors are like, let's put it at 9:30 a.m. or hey, let's put this at 8 a.m. classes. I'm like, no, no, why would you do that? But as now a senior, I'm just like, ah. This class does seem interesting, but then there's another class that's also seem interesting, but that one's at 11 a.m. That one's at noon. Hmm.
Yeah,
And so yeah, I have not. I don't think I was in sophomore year. I haven't had like an 8 a.m. class, and that's been like purposefully done.
I feel like I definitely agree with you. Like when you're a freshman, you don't know anything and you're just getting what you can get at that point.
Yeah.
But I definitely, when I didn't have to have 8 a.m.s, it was a blessing. I was very lucky though. I feel like a lot of Michigan's EECS courses were at like 10 a.m. And they would be, I don't know how it is at your university, but it would be like every other day, usually during like a block period. So I would be done early afternoon most times unless I had a terribly long lab. And I don't know if you've had labs that go like 4 hours, like labs like that just take forever. But my only 8 a.m. I feel like was selected 8 a.m. and it was yoga because I was like, oh, let me start my day off, all zen. And I would wake up. Well, I'd make really my boyfriend wake up because he would drive me to campus at 8 a.m. to go and do yoga in the morning before my 10 a.m. EECS antennas or I don't know, 216 class or something like that. But what is your major for the folks that don't know you?
So I'm a computer engineering major at the University of Maryland. Go Terps!
Woo woo.
And yeah, I was funnily enough started off as an archaeology major, and I totally switched fields into computer engineering. So that's a story. But
What made you want to go into archaeology first in the first place?
I don't know. It was just I was always interested in history and just more of the humanities than say the sciences. It's not like I didn't appreciate the sciences. Like I guess I was just into everything in high school, but it was probably a mixture of I took some so we had this thing in high school called the humanities courses, and it was a little bit different than like your regular English or regular history in that the two teachers who were responsible for that program at my high school, they purposely tried to make their lessons work with each other. So if we
Mm,
were learning, say I don't know, if we were learning about uh, what is it like the American Revolutionary War in say the history class, in the English class we would read things like the Declaration of Independence, read things like
mm.
Thomas Paine's, I think, Common Sense was the book. So like with the history or whatever event from history, we would try to read the literature of people who are like witnesses
From
or
that
like
time.
from that
Yeah.
time period. And like vice
Interesting.
versa, if we're reading like ancient Greek literature, like if we're reading the Iliad or the Odyssey, we would learn about Athens and Sparta in the history class so that the two classes would actually coordinate with each other. And I thought that was pretty cool because that was like probably my first experience of like interdisciplinary where it's like, oh, literature is not just by itself. Oh, history is not by itself.
Yeah,
And
they're all together all the
they're all
time.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess do you have a favorite period though? Like, do you have a favorite time period?
I don't know. I feel like this is a bit of a cop out answer because it is. And I feel like it changes because I like I think okay, so like in middle school and like my first half of high school, I was really into like Roman history because
Yeah.
there's just so much of it, and it was like a clearly delineated story, right? Rome rise, Rome became great, and then Rome fell. I was like, oh, as a middle school, I'm like, that's like a story that I can follow.
It's
But
cute,
yeah,
yeah.
after a while, like I get bored of Roman history, and then like I find the next interesting thing. So I think
Yeah.
latter half of high school, I was really into like late medieval slash like early modern history. So think like
Mm,
Renaissance, think like
the Renaissance is a good
uh
time. I feel
yeah.
like the Renaissance
And
seemed like a
like
lit time.
pretty recently I think my focus on history has been like, and I think this is sort of a guilty thing about a lot of history courses, is that there's definitely like a European centric focus on history. And so I mean pretty recently I was reading into say like Mesoamerican history, which I mean to be frank, there's just not enough information compared to like
Yeah.
European history. It's just
Yeah.
that's just how it
The
is. But
conquistadors just killed them all and was like, "This is my land."
yeah, it's not. It's a very ugly version. It's a very ugly chapter of human history. But there's interesting. There's so much more beyond just what just it's in that standard history textbook.
True,
So
exactly. And it's, like, interesting because you don't realize, like, even though we learn about history just from the narratives of a few folks, like, they were just regular people too that were just doing their thing, maybe planting their crops, weaving their baskets and rugs, and we don't ever hear about, like, what their struggles were, like, what their problems were, but my favorite, definitely, I feel like in high school was like the ancient Mayan, because of the whole
yeah,
conspiracy around like the calendar. I was super into like the Incas because I just thought like they were so advanced, like being able to breathe those high altitude and build like gigantic structures. And they have quinoa, which, I like quinoa. And I
everybody loves
love
quinoa.
yeah, and then, like, the ancient Indian civilizations were cool because it's like, well, those are, like, the first languages. You have Sanskrit, you have, like I forgot, I think it's the Mohenjo-daro where they built, like, the first, like, main, like, sewer system in India, like, back in the day.
Yeah,
And just, like, the understanding of, like, how religions came to be and all of that, like, is so fascinating, but I am so fascinated, as I'm sure I've told you about, like, ancient Egypt and just, like, old like, how? Just I have questions, like, even understanding the Stonehenge, I'm just like, "What? How?" The figures on, like, Easter Island too that, like, they didn't even know, like, are whole bodies, but they were, like, intentionally buried. Like, who is doing that? And why are you doing that? Like, I just have so many questions.
I always thought of it as like perspective. Like, I think if you were to step back and look at like human ingenuity and like drive, it's like, I mean, think of like Shanghai, right? Shanghai was basically a fisher's village 30, 40 years ago. And like, if you look at Shanghai now on Google Images, it's like skyscrapers, it's
Yeah,
like apartment
industrial,
complexes, like, and like, 30 years is like a drop in the bucket for like human history.
I
So,
feel. Yeah, it's like a not
yeah,
even a blink.
it's
It's like a
amazing
mid
what
blink.
just
Yeah.
history has shown what can be done in such a short amount of time.
I just think it goes to prove how awesome humans are, though. Humans are
Yeah.
insane little creatures.
And it's like, I don't know, it's like, isn't like 50 million plus people live in the Shanghai metropolitan area now? And it was literally just a fishing village 30, 40 years ago. That's like crazy
That's
to
not a
me.
long time, like, that's someone's life, It's
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
someone's life, like but, I guess so you are a born and raised American living, in the beautiful Eastern Seaboard in the is Maryland a part of the tri Maryland's not part of the tri-state, right? It's a part of a different trio, isn't it?
Well, we have our own tri-state kind of, so I'm guessing you're referring to tri-state of like New York, New Jersey, and um,
Connecticut? I don't
Connecticut
know.
area. I don't know if
But
Connecticut's
I
part
know,
of it,
like,
but
cause like, I know when they talk about DC, like, they always talk about it, like, from Maryland, Virginia. There's, kind of another kinda tri-statey
yeah.
grouping.
So this I might anger some people from Delaware here, but as a as for Maryland, when we say DMV, we don't mean the Department of Motors and Vehicles,
Vehicle.
as people seem to think. But um, I think most people that I know in Maryland, Virginia, when we say DMV, we mean DC, Maryland, Virginia, DMV.
Mm.
But if you ask some people from Delaware, they say Delaware, Maryland, Virginia. I don't know if I would agree with that. I've always talked about it as DMV, so DC, Maryland, Virginia. But yeah, I mean, I think most of Maryland, Central Maryland to like DC to Northern Virginia, it's a pretty homogenous region. Like,
Mm.
Northern Virginia, Central Maryland, and then DC in between. It's like we like to think of it as one area. Yeah, I pretty much spent my entire life in the DMV area. I think probably the farthest I've ever moved is like 20, 25 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, I lived half a year in California, and that's about as far as that.
Yeah, like, how was it living in Cali compared to the East? I feel like the west side of America is just more chill. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in it in the latter half of 2019, so that was right before this whole pandemic.
Mm.
So yeah, some say I got lucky with the timing. um, yeah, I just remember, I'll never forget when I landed at SFO because I was staying in San Francisco for that half a year.
Love San Fran.
Yeah, and I just remember thinking, it's so, I don't know if slow pace is the right way to say it, but yeah,
It's
people are just
chill.
chill. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, people I feel like are more just going with the flow of life, they trying to have a good time. They're all about love and acceptance. Well, some folk,
Although
I don't know.
I will say though, when it came to the cost of living, however, that was something
It's
that
ridiculous.
that kind of
Ridiculous.
shocked
I
me.
don't know
I
how
like
people live
I'd
over
always
there.
read it in the papers, but
I
it's
guess how
like
much is rent in Maryland compare I mean, like, in San Fran is ridiculous. It's like 3,000, a lot of shmoney, period. But I feel like it's probably more realistic in
I think it
Maryland.
depends because I mean California is a giant state compared to say Maryland or even Virginia. So if you're living in like downtown DC, you can get pretty expensive. It's nowhere near as though San Francisco. I think like maybe a one bedroom luxury apartment right next to say like Dupont Circle, maybe like 1800, maybe 2200. But that's like what a room or a slash one bedroom room in San Francisco is. So it's like, oh, you get
Yeah,
your own
exactly.
apartment versus say you get your own bedroom in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But if you're like living in the suburbs, you're like a 30-40 minute commute north of DC, you could probably get into like a house with some friends, maybe like 600-700 a bedroom per person.
Yeah.
So
That's not
yeah,
too crazy. Because, like, even
yeah,
in Michigan, like, the college town, if you're living on campus, you're definitely paying a ridiculous amount of money for, like, a shack. Whereas, like, I lived in Ipsy, which is, like, midway between, like, the Ann Arbor Ipsy border. It was still in the same county, but rent was significantly cheaper. Like, I only paid, I think, like, $800 roughly a month, like, between me and my boyfriend, like, living and having rent in Ipsy compared to, like, our friends that were paying thousands of dollars to live in literally a shack. Like, I remember, I don't know if Maryland also got hit with the polar vortex when that happened, but literally, like, one of my friends, like, his sliding door was a sheet of glass. I mean, of ice because of how cold it was. Like, it was just ridiculous, ridiculous.
yeah. That I don't think we got hit just as hard, but yeah, I mean, I think everybody goes through that their stage in life. I mean, I'm going through it still, and maybe you are as well. But like, when you're young and you're in college, it's not you're not always living in like the best apartment or maybe like
Just
even like
roof over your head, just
just a roof over. You're trying to save
ramen in
money,
your belly, just
and
roof
yeah, I
over
mean,
your
speaking
head.
of ramen, it's also like food, right? As a college student or as a young person in their 20s, you gotta like you know,
It's a
every once in a
struggle.
while, I like to treat myself out and go to a nice restaurant. But let's be honest here, I'm
It's
paying.
expensive.
I'm
I'm
probably
so
meal
sick.
prepping or making
Meal
instant
prepping is
food.
also hard though. I'm just like I don't know. I'm so used to my mom used to feed me so well. So, like, now I feel like I'm struggling. I'm just like, "Mom, why'd you have to spoil me?" Cuz now I can't eat shitty food and I'm just like, "Oh my god, this tastes bad. Do I have to eat it?" Yes, you do, because we're not spending more money on takeout. But I know you were saying, like, DC has great food because of all the embassies there, and I guess like is there any perks to being close to the capital? Like I guess do you get to see the presidents? Like have you do you see I feel like the only time I would have cared is when Obama was living there, but
Well, not to spoil your dreams, but I don't think I ever saw Obama when I was hanging around DC as a kid or as a high school student.
I mean I doubt he's just outside.
Eh,
He's probably
there
doing
definitely is the
stuff.
chance that, like, I guess, like, in Los Angeles, you'll like if you're in Hollywood, you'll
You'll
like
see a celeb.
you'll see a celebrity, but like I know at least in like DC, some of my high school friends have seen like representatives or like I think
I
one of
feel
them
like
actually
senators
saw.
are less impressive though. Like the only senators that are cool are Bernie and AOC. The rest of them I could care less.
I did have a couple of high school friends when they were on like a weekend trip. They did see Elizabeth Warren and got to talk to her,
Oh,
which was pretty
cool.
cool.
That is cool.
But I guess like vice president, president, probably not. There's always secret. What is it? Secret Service protecting them. But
Yeah,
I
I feel.
guess one thing I do like about DC is like all of the public institutions, like
Mm.
museums, parks. What else? Like all these like historical houses. I guess they're kind of similar to museums, but like they're all free because they're all most of them fall under like the Smithsonian
Yeah, I would love to
organization.
go to the
So
Smithsonian. Like I mean, as a foreigner having grown up watching that at the museum, it just seems so cool. Like I was just even like I've always wanted to see the one in New York, but I really want to see the one in DC. And like my thing as a kid was like the astronaut ice cream. Like I used to think that that was so cool. Like just like what the food that the astronauts like, again, this is a foreigner who my we have like one museum where I'm from and it's small and needs a lot of love, I think. But to see like these huge institutions that have all of this history, and like you said, like most of it, I remember like during our conversations was just like in the archives, and like most people don't even get to see like all the amazing things that the Smithsonian even has in its archives, which is stuff that I remember you were saying like there was a course you could take or something like that where you can go in and find like a fossil and write your thesis about it that just had never been examined because there's just so much information down there.
yeah, I mean, if anybody's interested, a lot of the local universities around DC have deals with the Smithsonian where if you're like, yeah, if you're like majoring in archaeology or like art history or like literature, you're allowed to have obviously if they go through the right channels and sign a lot of disclosures saying that you won't harm anything. But if you're a student or if you're like a PhD researcher, you're allowed to have access to the archives. So I mean, it's just crazy how much stuff they have there, and it's like all yeah, it's all for the public good. So it's just amazing to me because I remember there was a Maryland PhD student who had literally found a new species in the archives because it was like so sometimes the Smithsonian they participate in archaeological digs, and if they just don't have the time to individually research or catalog every single fossil, they'll do mass castings where they put all the fossils they find at a site into a casting, do it all at once, and record keep it for later discovery. But obviously, there's a backlog of everything, so they allow PhD students to go and check out all of this casted and molded, essentially hunks of dirt and bones
Yeah.
that they didn't have time to go through, and so who knows what's in all of that stuff? Like I said, some PhD students have found and discovered new species, and they've been able to name them. It's a courtesy they always give
That's
to
so
people who
cool.
discover new species. But
That would be a cool just experience though to be like, "Oh, I found a fossil that nobody has ever seen before." Like, and that just goes to show you there's so much we don't know about this planet and things that have lived on this planet or what is going on with this planet. And we're just, walking around all nonchalantly like everything's okay, everything is normal, we're all safe, everything's, the same. And it's like, nah, we're like literally in on a planet whirling through the midst of space all pure chaos and humans are the one that are like we got this, it's all under control.
you're not getting existential on me, are you now?
Oh, I mean we can get existential. I was gonna first like obviously because I know you're an amazing one of the amazing interns in surface devices this summer, and I did want to give you a chance just to kind of talk about like I guess like how did you even get your Microsoft internship, because I know so many people always ask me like how did you get in, so I'm curious like what was it for you getting like, or at least, like, interviewing and all of that to get your internship this summer?
That's a lot. It's a lot on my plate. Yes. really the biggest takeaway I had from the internship, well, I guess to preface is that this is not my first tech internship. So I had internships at other companies beforehand. So I guess I have a different perspective from perhaps somebody who's going in completely blind or hasn't done it before. But I guess in a short way, it's not like Microsoft's internship process is unique rather compared to other tech companies. Like they're fairly similar in that, there's always that split of hard skills and soft skills, technical and public speaking. So I guess in terms of like the material that they're looking for, it's not super different. So I mean, obviously they want you to know how to code, they want you to know how to problem solve. But probably what was different was just the whole process of getting your foot in the first place, like on the radar for recruiters, and the whole thing of, well, how do I get the first notice from
Yeah.
the whole recruiting system? So, I mean, in that respect, I did have some help where one of my friends had internet Microsoft before, and he was able to give me some tips and how to get your first step in and who to contact as well. I can go into specifics later, but that was probably the biggest thing that was different is that, yeah, every company has a different way of putting your first step into the door. But once you're past that first step, it's not like they are using different technology than other companies. They may be creating
Yeah.
different technologies, but everybody uses programming languages. Everybody uses
Yeah, there's like a
a front end
foundation.
engineers and
Yeah,
back end engineers.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
And I guess like because you are one of the few that are probably ever like because I don't know whenever Microsoft's ever going to have like remote internships again. Like I assume obviously once campus is open, they'll bring the interns back. But I guess like how has it been having had like a normal internship before, but now having like a remote internship where you're now actually here in Washington, but you're still in Maryland, but also still a part of Microsoft's community.
I'm gonna answer your question and also not answer it because I'm gonna broaden it out to like remote life in general, if that's okay with you.
No, that's all good.
Um, I don't know about you, but at least for me, when the first weeks of the pandemic happened and everything went remote, because this was when I was still finishing up my spring semester, I wasn't working yet at Microsoft. It felt very weird to me because, okay, I'm sort of outing myself here, but I'm not the best student when it comes to attendance in class. So even beforehand, like I was, the some professors and almost all my professors, in fact, did pre-recorded lectures. So
Mm,
it wasn't a Zoom where it was live. Rather, they had recorded what was done in person, and then you can view it on this website called Panapto, which is what my university uses. So essentially, you were watching Khan Academy for all intents and purposes. So going from that, because I was a terrible student in terms of attendance, and then going to Zoom was not a huge transition in terms of how the material was done. Rather,
yeah.
it was that I was at home now instead of on an apartment near campus.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's like it's not so much the work slash classes that has changed for me this past year. It's just that the physical part, not so much
Like
the
where
classes, but
you
like
are.
where you are and everything. So I don't know. It's weird. It's like nice to be back with friends and family, but at the same time, I'm sure. I guess this is, like I said, more general life and remote. It's a bit weird how it feels like things have sort of blurred in terms of dates and years. Like if you would ask me what did you do this past year, I would have to think a lot harder than to like what
Yeah.
I did in 2019 or 2018. Because I remember like 2019, probably the biggest highlight for me was I was in California doing all this cool West Coast stuff.
Yeah.
2020, honestly, like between March of 2020 and like November of 2020, it was a complete blur to me. I don't know about you.
For me, I definitely like so it was my senior year when everything went remote. So I was the opposite. I go to class every
Oh,
time.
okay.
Like I actually go to lecture. Yeah, I'm one of those people that actually goes to lecture. But and so the reason why I did it is cuz I know myself and it's like it's not like I had an issue doing remote learning because in my senior year, well, senior junior year of high school, I did a lot of like APs online, so I had gotten used to like having to be self disciplined enough to do my work, even though I wasn't in class. But when we moved remote, I will say like I pretty much went from attending every lecture to like watching like none of them. Like I would literally just sleep through when I would be in class and be like, well, my teacher just uploaded the video anyway. I'm just going to go watch it later when I need it or when I need to do my homework. So I definitely will say it wasn't the best in terms of like, because when I go to class, the reason I go to lecture is so that I'm forced to have to sit there and listen and learn in the moment, because I don't necessarily trust myself to do it later. And then yeah, when I was at home, it was so comfortable being at home, but I didn't really like it just because, like, my senior year, I felt like because you have to do senior design and all of that, and I didn't really get to do it the way that years past had. I didn't really get to build something as like my final project. It was all theory, which is cool, and it probably was easier to get an A that way, but it's just like not the same. But I will say, like, my summer of 2020, I pretty much spent in the like northern Michigan just camping and being in nature, which was fantastic because I literally had nothing to do. Like I was just hoping Microsoft would call me and be like, "Hey, yes, we still have a job for you." Because I don't know if like all if it was the same for students at your university, but I had a lot of friends who like their internships were getting canceled, like people that worked for airlines. Obviously, like that was a major blow to that industry. And so they canceled like all of their internships for like all of their students and didn't even say like they were just like, "Oh yeah, we're not having our internship class. Good luck." Which for a lot of people, like when you work in the summer to make money to pay for like your rent throughout the year, that can be kind of a blow to your like economic stability. So that definitely sucked for some of my peers. But I was fortunate that Microsoft was like, "Yeah, we still want you. What you mean? Of course." And yeah, I moved out here, and everything was sweet, and they made it easy peasy. So wasn't too crazy,
Yeah,
at least for me.
I think it kind of mirrors what happened to a lot of my friends, where some of them had jobs that were still lined up for those that were graduating, but for others who still had like another year left, like me, and or they had perhaps 2 years left for younger friends. It was definitely a case of like there was such a wide spectrum. It all because it all depended on what company and what industry and what majors they
Exactly.
were in. So like it was just yeah, I guess chaos is the best way to put it, and
Yeah.
just the fact that so many of my friends, well, they're working full time now. Some of them are going to grad school instead. Some of them are still looking for jobs, to be frank. And so it's weird because if you had asked me like in 2019, like even in like Christmas 2019, if you had asked me, what's going to be going on with you and your friends, I would have had like a pretty box standard
Clear
answer.
plan. Yeah,
Yeah, clear
exactly.
plans. And then like March rolls around,
And they're like,
lockdowns
"Psych,
begin,
take your plans
and
and
it's like weird
just
for
throw
college
them out
students
the window."
because and it's like weird for college students because for us to have still more years left and more classes left, it's like, okay, I mean, the first semester, right? You go online, nobody thought that the pandemic would be soon over enough to salvage that semester. But like, this is the
You
next
think the next
coming,
one, you're like,
yeah,
"At
the
least the
next
next
year, it's
one."
like, are we online? Are we in person? Do I need to rent an apartment because I need to be on campus nearby?
Yeah, exactly.
How does the job fair look? Because
Yeah, you
student
need
loans and
career fair.
everything.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's kind of weird because some people have taken advantage of it where it's like what's that line from Game of Thrones, chaos breeds opportunity or something like that. It's like some people are realizing, hey, people, they use LinkedIn or whatever, they find alternative ways of finding jobs. But then for others, it's like if they have student loans or somebody's been affected by COVID in their family, it's like
It's
it definitely
rough,
puts
yeah.
a shadow over their mindset. So I mean, it's weird because I feel like at the same time it's become the norm. Like COVID and life under COVID has become a norm, but at the same
Because
time,
we're used to it now. Like
yeah, we're
it's not
used to
like
it
a new
now.
scary
It's
thing.
like
It's
how
kind of like, well,
fast we
it's
got used
been
to it as
here.
well.
I mean, humans adapt.
But like it's only been what 15, 16 months. Yeah, COVID's like the whole COVID lifestyle has only been around for 16, 15 months. So I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see what new normal is, especially for college students. I know at least for me, I am waiting to get out of my family's home. I love my family and all, but if you spend all
Too
day,
much
every
time.
day with your parents, you're like, okay,
You guys are annoying
I
me.
kind of,
I had
I want my space.
freedom. Yeah, like you can't tell me what to do anymore. Do you
Ah,
understand? I am an adult now. Please stop telling me what to do, but feed me though. Feed me, please, cuz
yes.
nobody wants to
Yeah.
do that? But it's like, wait, was it 2020 summer when the like it was like the big cicada, or I'm forgetting time too, or was it was this summer, right? This
Yeah, it was this
summer.
summer.
Okay, yeah, so I'm definitely off with my time. At least the cicadas waited a year before they went through. They didn't do it while COVID had. They at least like waited a year, and they were like, okay, now we will wreak havoc on the city of Maryland and just chirp, chirp, and shed everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it, it was over quick. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier. 6, 7 weeks was probably the max of their time on Earth. But I mean, there's a lot of them, and I know at least this happens in like most of the Mid Atlantic states. Ohio, I think apparently has seen it happen a lot more because it's gotten warmer there. But I mean,
Yeah, I just
it's
saw a
just
documentary about them, and they're just a lot, a lot, a
it's
lot.
like, but it's kind of weird. It's like I think about it, right? We don't really have any pest outbreaks in America. I mean, we did have a what was it, stink bugs, but that was like,
Those are annoying.
yeah.
Those are very annoying.
But it's like when you see those videos of like Southeast Asia or like sub-Saharan Africa where it's like
Yeah,
giant clouds of like
swarms.
grasshoppers and locusts. Yeah,
Yeah. That are just reeking through farmland and just like eating all of their crops, and just like you can't really do much about it because their populations just they breed like crazy. I feel like there's slowly been a bunny explosion too in America. I don't know if you see a lot of bunnies over on your neck of the woods, but I definitely felt like in Michigan, and I have seen them around Washington, there are tons of bunnies everywhere.
that is definitely true. I mean, there's always been a lot of there's always been a lot of deer, bunny, like everything
Deer
in
for
between
sure.
because we don't have wolves or we do
Well,
have
they're like,
bears, but they're way out west, like closer to
yeah.
like West Virginia slash like Ohio area.
Mm.
Probably the biggest thing we have here. I don't even know if Maryland has coyotes anymore.
I
Even
think
they may be
coyotes are
different.
all over America. I heard like they have spread compared to like most other predators. They're like everywhere now because they just scavenge and find food everywhere.
We do have a lot of foxes, and so foxes are pretty common in Maryland because that's like, I guess, smaller wolves and coyotes, so they can survive easier. But actually, no, yeah, we do have coyotes. There have been reports of coyotes, but yeah, like the eastern gray wolf is pretty much gone for most of America, and weren't they released in like Yellowstone a couple years ago? So they're still
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, the only place that I know of where there are wolves just roaming is like in the parks, pretty much. But I know like you're a huge outdoors fan, and I guess like where did your love for the outdoors come from, or have you like always just been in love with nature and like hiking and doing crazy shiz out in the wilderness?
I think it was kind of weirdly enough. Well, okay, I guess to give what I was like as a child. When I was like in elementary school, my family would go camping, the usual picnics with other families, and I found that fun in that I got to meet, my family friends and their kids, and we play like soccer or like kickball, and like have a barbecue afterwards. Like that was fun. When it came to camping, I enjoyed it, but it's not like I enjoyed the outdoors necessarily. I enjoyed like the swimming pool or the lake or like having ice cream on the beach at your local state park. So it wasn't necessarily much the like beauty of the outdoors. I mean, I
Mm.
was like 6 or 7. I don't think I even understood that back then. But I think it was like my second year of college, yeah, maybe towards my first year of college, where I really started liking the outdoors for like the sense of like just being outside. Probably because weirdly enough, it was through poetry. Because like, the humanities class I was talking about earlier, when we started reading about 19th century romanticism, think like Thoreau, think like Keats and Byron and Shelley, the English poet. They would write about the beauty of nature, and I thought, oh, well, I mean, the words are nice. I probably enjoyed the poetry for the poetry, but not like for the outdoors. But then when I was in my first year of college, right before, I took like a summer trip because I had finished high school and everything. I went to Yosemite, and I was just awestruck by Yosemite. And I just realized afterwards, huh, I wonder if there's any poems about Yosemite, because a lot of the poems that we read about in high school were like European poets, and like I had never
Yeah.
been to Europe, so I didn't see what they were writing about. And yeah, America has some amazing poems about Yosemite, and I thought, wow, that's like really struck. Like, there is, I think there was a section of the Yosemite Falls trailhead where you're going up and you see the stains of like water erosion on the wall of the granite cliffs, and it looks
Mm,
like somebody had like taken different shades of brown and amber red and painted the cliffs. And there was a poem describing it as if it was a cathedral of rocks painted by a stonemason. And I thought, wow, like they accurately, it looks like somebody took a giant paintbrush and painted the side of this mountain. And so yeah, afterwards I got into like hiking and all. And yeah, it was from that. It was just whenever I get the chance, I try to like go outside on like a big backpacking hike. Probably because there's like a bit of wonder behind it, and also there's more than just beyond what's near sort of the touristy parts. Like your
yeah.
Yosemite Valley is amazing. What they offer in terms of what's near a parking lot. It's great that the National Park Service has built and engineered the flow of roads so that you can see the most amazing sights. But there's even more. You go into the trail, like
How many of the national parks have you been to?
seven, I believe. So I've been to Yosemite, I've been to Bryce, I've been to Arches, I have been to Sequoia. Those are all like West Coast ish, Utah, not really West Coast, I guess, but there's those. And then on the East Coast, I have been to Shenandoah, I've been to the Smokies, and which one am I missing? I know it's seven, but there's one I'm missing. I don't know why I'm missing it.
It'll come to you.
It'll come to me. It'll come to me. But yeah, it's even like the idea that America is so varied
Huge.
in its
It is
landscape. Yeah, it's like
gigantic.
it's the size of
Gigantic.
Europe plus Russia west of the Urals, like roughly.
Yeah,
And I
it's
just
huge. Like, one country, and you like, the way that America has states is pretty much how Europe has countries.
yeah
It's just insane, you know? And for me, it's interesting, like, being not an American and coming to America, because people always think I'm American, like, because I don't have much of I have, like, the least Caribbean accent of anyone from the Caribbean. Like, it's so bad. Like, I'm literally just, like, I'm low-key mad at my mom for taking me out of public school where I lost my Caribbean accent, but I can't blame her because she just wanted me to sound, competent. So I appreciate her for that. But I definitely like just seeing like all the different types of Americans. Like, it's so, I think it's very messed up when people just generalize America, or at least like I feel like in the rest of the world people just look at America as this crazy place when there is so many different types of Americans, completely different types of accents, ideologies, just like experiences, even just across race, across economic status, across religion, across just there's so much that, like, to me, what's great about America is that there is all of that. And yet there can be a place where you can do all of that and use all of that awesomeness to your best, like having amazing food trucks across some embassies that just taste amazing. Like, that's the best of diversity. I don't know.
yeah, it's really amazing. And like even on the trail when I'm hiking, it's like you kind of do see a microcosm, not just of America but of the world. So
Yeah.
to explain, a lot of like the long term trails, especially on the west coast, they have like these huts they have where it's just basically a stone building with three
Mm,
walls. The fourth wall is missing, so you can just easily enter and exit. They usually have what is it? A giant rectangular wooden platform which you can put your sleeping bags on and sleep inside the hut overnight. So the idea is to protect you from like wind chill or rain. And
not
sometimes they'll have a
bears.
sadly, no. And sometimes they'll have we can talk about bears later, but sometimes they'll have like a stone fireplace built into one of the walls. And like, yeah, when you're out hiking, you meet people all over from America, especially if you go near some of the national parks like Yosemite, like Yellowstone. I remember, and this was more on the East Coast actually. I remember stopping by Bird's Nest number 2 inside Shenandoah, and I think that night, this was in 2019. Yeah, there was a guy from Italy who had hiked the Dolomites, and so he decided to come to America and hike the Appalachian Trail. There was an old retired couple from South Carolina, and they were just outdoors enjoying their retirement. And then there was a nurse from New Hampshire who had taken time off to do the hike. And then there was these two guys from Germany who were like the guy from Italy coming to America to try out hiking. And so yeah, it's like I will probably never meet them ever again, but you know those people who I met that night, we um, talked, caught up, and just told each other where we were in life. You know, I was going through college. I was taking some time off because I needed to de-stress that weekend. So I went down to Shenandoah to do some hiking. And yeah, it's just amazing. You know, people will share food, people will share whatever trail mix they have, people will share stories. And a lot of these huts also have like inside a Ziploc bag kept next to the fireplace. They'll have like a pencil and like this 80-page notebook paper, and it's basically you'll log in what time and day you were there, what your name was, and maybe a sentence or two of what you're doing. You know, maybe it's what trail are you on, why are you doing this trail, what stage are you at in your life, and you read that notebook, and then it goes back 4 or 5 years, and you just see everybody who has stopped by at that specific hut in history, and so it's
And
like
that's
it's a
insane.
beautiful thing that
Yeah,
you
it
know
is
it's like those
beautiful.
small things on the trail that I really like to go back into and see. And like yeah, if you're ever in Shenandoah, for the viewers, if you go to Bird's Nest number 2 and that notebook is still there, you're gonna find my entries there under my name. So
You can
uh,
reflect on young Christopher and see what he was going through when he was first there. Because, yeah, I definitely think that's awesome. That's so awesome. And I do think like the national park do such a great job at building facilities that are really robust for being there for so long. Like, it's insane how well they're maintained, just for what they are, just little shacks in the woods just to sleep.
yeah, I mean they've done a phenomenal job. I mean it's great that national parks are, I think 2020 even. Well, 2020 was a lower year because of lockdown and everything, but
Yeah.
2019 to 2018 all the way back to 2012, like every single year the national parks have hit like record attendance. So it's amazing that people are getting ever more interested in the outdoors and in the national parks. You know, it's a space for everybody. But
Yeah. Nature's important. Like, I think it's good for the soul, it's good for your mental health. Like, that's why I love living over here, is because like I'm sure you've seen, just being on the West Coast, like how luscious these forests can be, just how beautiful they can be. And I mean, I'm still trying to see a bear. I have not seen a bear. I keep seeing other people seeing bears, other people having bears come in their backyard. I'm like, where is the bear at? If they everywhere, why can't I see one?
I'm sure you'll see one. You have to see one sometime soon.
I don't
But
know. I've been seeing too many dare that I'm like, I've seen one, I've seen them all. Let me see a bear in the wild. But watch me say this, and then I'll be in the forest one day and I'll see the bear and I'll probably pee myself. I don't know. Like, I'm just not trying to get mauled. I just want to see it from afar and be like, oh, look, that's a bear all the way over there.
I mean, bears are intelligent creatures, and actually most of them are
Very
pretty shy.
intelligent.
Like they're very shy creatures as well. I know at least in So here's a funny story for the viewers. So uh, I don't think it's fully required in all national parks in the U.S., but it's recommended, at least at all the parks, where you would bring some container to put your food in, right? Because you don't want bears, or not even just bears, like raccoons or other wild animals, getting in your food while you're sleeping at
Yep.
night. And so for a long time, you had two options. One was a bear bag, as we call it, or a bear box. So the
Mm.
bear bag essentially is the idea is that you would take this bag, put your food in it, tie the top of it with a rope, and then throw the rope over a branch. And then the bear bag would hang on one side, and then you would take the other side, wrap it around, say, like a metal stake, and then put the stake into the ground. So the idea being that you throw it over a branch that's strong enough to hold the weight of the bag, but if any animal went on that branch, the branch would be weak enough where it would fall to dissuade any animals from trying to climb up and get the food. And then you would also keep it above ground high enough where no animal can jump up and get it. Well, it turns out that at a lot of national parks, bears have gotten to the point where they know they can just cut the rope.
Of course they know. They're like, wait, I have long, sharp claws. Let me just cut this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I like Yosemite, I think Yellowstone as well. I don't know if all national parks require it now, but I personally just use a bear box. So they've moved to more bear boxes. Bear box is a bit of a misleading term. It's better to call it a bear container. It's like these
Mm.
cylindrical containers. Basically, think giant peanut butter jars made out of
Okay.
reinforced plastic, where you would just then put your stuff in it and then you screw it, and some of them have like those coin slips where you just rotate it with a coin to put a lock in, but a lot of them have like basically the grooves on the side of the lid. Well, it turns out that and nobody's confirmed this live because it's hard to catch a bear in the act doing this, but there have been reports at like Yosemite and other mountainous parks where they find these bear boxes at the bottom of a valley thrown, and they've been cracked open because you throw them over a cliff, they crack when they hit the ground. And it's been suspected, and because the food has been rifled and eaten through, it's been suspected that bears have gotten to the point where they'll take the box
They're
and throw
evolving.
it over the cliff. And it's like, what's next? What's the next thing? If it becomes commonplace enough, what are we going to do after bear boxes? How do we keep the food safe?
I must say, I applaud the bears for being so intelligent. And it just goes to show you, like, I feel like humans are so cocky when they're like, we run this planet. This is our planet. You must do what the humans say. And then you have bears that are learning how to open bear boxes. Like, this is hilarious. It's just like, obviously, we're not the only ones that are smart out here. Like, yes, we can build cool things that fly in the sky and sail in the water and compute and send magical bits of ones and zeros through the air so that like you and I can talk. But obviously like animals are intelligent and they like if you just look at an animal, you can clearly see that they're thinking or like they're planning or they notice you. Like it's not like we're just there and they're like, "Oh, a human." Like they clearly I feel like notice your presence or have noticed our presence seeing that we've been here for a couple centuries and they're clearly like evolving to us being, you know, as annoying as we are as a species. Like they're like foxes and coyotes are getting more comfortable, like just being around us and trifling through trash. Raccoons clearly love human garbage. And like you said, bears are just getting smarter and smarter.
Yeah, I do wonder one day, like those sci-fi shows where it's like they have like those anthropomorphic like dogs or like Planet of the Apes sort of situation. Who knows? I mean, I think it's definitely amazing. Like there's YouTube videos of like chimpanzees solving puzzles and like octopuses opening jars and like rats also like figuring out pattern matching. It's just
Mazes,
amazing
yeah.
what's out there. Yeah.
It's I mean, I don't know. I feel like whatever's gonna take humans out is probably gonna be of our own making. I feel like we're gonna probably be the ones to just do some dumb shit, and it'd be our own fault why we ruined it for ourselves. I feel like the dolphins are conquering the sea, but they just don't mess with us. Like they're just there living their life. Like I feel like you rarely ever see like dolphins like, they know, you know, like, they know how to avoid us, they know how to hunt, they play games, like, they have whole strategies, they have whole languages that they communicate with, and we just can't interpret it, so we just think they're dumb as rocks just because they don't speak English,
Kind of makes me wonder. Like this is,
what
I
are
mean,
they
obviously
talking
these are
about?
all living animals, but like in terms of extinct animals, is there like any animal you
True.
wish you could see that's extinct now?
Hmm. I would love to be able to see this is a good question. Because it's like of course I want to see a T-Rex just for, you know, the Jurassic Park and, you know, fan in me. I would love to see a T-Rex, but at the same time I'm like obviously that's not a good idea. It'd be cool to see like a megalodon, you know those huge sharks that are like bigger than great whites, like gigantic. Like I can't imagine being alive when a megalodon roamed the ocean. I would be too afraid to step my pinky toe in the ocean if a megalodon was in there for sure. But then I'm also like, I think it'd be cool to see like even the human species that like are now extinct. Like I would love to be able to meet a Homo neanderthal or like have met Lucy, you know what I mean? Or like seeing
We're
like
on the exact
what
same page with that.
what were these people like because like I mean as much as like it's sometimes it's I'm just like I look at humans and I'm like we're so weird. Like we are so weird. Like we don't fit in anything. Like we look like no other animal. Like we
We're
are
one of the few hairless
so
primates.
weird. Like I'm
Yep.
like how are like and there's so many of us. And like anytime I recently went to a baseball game here in Seattle at T-Mobile Park and I was just looking at all the different humans just in the stadium and I'm like we are the only species that build stadiums just to watch other humans play games for our own entertainment. Like that's just weird. I'm like maybe we are aliens, or like I know there's this like hypothesis of like apes that took shrooms and then they evolved into humans, or like aliens came to Earth and they mated with the apes and then it created humans, or like aliens came to Earth and they like brainwashed the apes or like did some scientific probing and then generated a new species that is humans and like that's why we're so smart or something. I have no clue. But I'm just like humans are weird, man. Like we are so weird. I don't know. It blows my mind every day. I'm like, humans are weird. And we're like the only ones of our kind. Like I would love to that's what makes me more sense. I'm like, can I see other forms of us? Just like other versions, other iterations, other prototypes of the human species. Like I need to see something. Like it's just
I mean, that's what I think history is all about. We try to figure out the past and try to piece together a puzzle. I don't know if I would necessarily go all the way back to like Neanderthals and like, Homo erectus and all that. I think even more for that. I guess this is sort of a bit of history as well. Just like one thing that always fascinated me was just languages as well. Like
yeah.
the proliferation of languages. Because like, um, I think there's like a hypothesis out called the Proto-Indo-European hypothesis, and it's a hypothesis that has some controversy with it. It's not entirely provable. I mean, for obvious reasons, because it's the language no longer spoken. But it's just amazing to me, like the idea that languages and people migrate, people move, and I mean even today, like we have modern day slang, which like if you ask my grandparents, they would not know what these words mean. Like I mean, what was the most popular new word in 2020? I'm trying to think. Uh,
There's a lot of new words that I learned just from coming to America, but I don't know like what's the most popular. Like I say bet now, which is I never used to understand like why people would say bet as like okay. Um I don't know.
yeah, actually, yeah, I can't remember what was probably the word of 2020. I'm sure Webster Dictionary probably has like their like congratulatory, hey, word of 2020 right over here, but I
The
don't know
word
what
of
it is.
2020 is pandemic. I just looked it up.
That's sad. That's just sad, honestly. Okay, let's
That's
look at 2019.
hilarious.
Let's look at
Let me
2019.
see. The word
2019
of
word of the year.
29. It says they.
That's
Oh,
it.
because of gender identity. Wow.
Okay, let's try 20. Let's try 2019 meme word. How about that meme word? Let's see if we get something different here. Sus. Okay, I'll take that.
Oh, I like that. I like
Yeah.
sus. I like sus. I like that word. Because everything's sus. Everything's sus.
There's also stonks. I mean, that was a big thing with GameStop and everything. Yep, that's another word.
Stocks. Yeah, I could see
Stonks.
that. I could see that. Rocket shipping to the moon.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, yeah, a lot of words we come up with, and I'm wholeheartedly behind this, is like memes as well. It's like it's amazing how many good memes there have been
There
this
are.
past year.
I will say the internet is undefeated. Like, people are just so mean that it's so funny. Like I can't. Like I that's why I love the internet as much as it's also like a place of trash. It's also just like also brings and showcases the hilariousness of humans. Like our ability to take a concept and turn it into a joke, like images that we can all relate to, like facial expressions and just like hilarious.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
it's kind of it's amazing how like I mean let's like think about like the number 69, right, had like a very lewd and like very risque origin, but like it's just amazing how whenever somebody says 69, people are like nice. It's like it's just so ubiquitous now. It's like language almost, and like what like sus with Among Us and everything. That's gotten like so
Among Us is
widespread.
fun.
Yeah,
Imposters, yeah, I feel it's only gonna get better though. I feel because like just the imagination. But, like, also, like, the fact that we're a collective, like, we live in such a large civilization where we can all agree, like, "Sus," like, we all say "sus," you know, and, like, having these, like, trends, like, it's interesting, I feel like, how do words become a part of pop culture, and why do certain words become a part of pop culture, and does it have to do with what's going on in the times and just, like, what technology is doing at the time? Because it all, like, influences each other in such, like, a weird but yet organic way.
there's even like the memes or trends that are kind of not so much like been erased, but kind of been forgotten. Like I'm trying to think of what. Like, do you remember when ALS, the ice bucket challenge, was a
Mm,
big thing? And
I
it's like it's
do.
not so much like it's not by all means a race, but it's like it's obviously not as prevalent as it once
Yeah.
was.
Or
Like
like the
it's a
planking
trend.
challenge, like people used to
I
plank
totally
everywhere.
missed that. Not gonna lie, I never
I
did a
never did
plank.
it, but like people would do it.
Like I only knew about it after it died off. I was like, that was a thing. I don't remember seeing that anywhere when it was supposedly was a thing.
Yeah, I feel you. I think it's like it's interesting, but I feel like a lot of like what goes into pop culture is heavily influenced by like what happens here in the States. Like people don't want
That is
to
true.
agree with it, but it's like where did all of these things come from? It's like a pretty much American craziness.
Are there any like non-European, non-US memes that I would know or that you would know?
Maybe, but it's just like when I don't think so. Like I feel like that's one thing that I think makes America so great is like when it comes to the global culture, I do think it's heavily influenced by the United States. Hands down. Like the rest of the world like pretty much follows in America's direction. Like whatever we build, in the tech sector influences, what goes out into the world. But even saying that though, a lot of that is still influenced by what work is done by other companies in other parts of the world. So I
I'm
don't
sorry,
know. I think we all influence each other.
I'm still hung up on trying to figure out if I know like a non-American meme.
I
I'm
don't think
thinking
I do.
real
I mean,
hard.
unless it's like I know like slang from the islands, but again, it's not like to the point that because it's from a place that's so small, it's not like prevalent in the pop culture. So it's like even though I might be aware of it, like other folk wouldn't be aware of it, which makes it less fun if you are the only one saying a word that nobody else
Yeah,
gets the relevance
I
of.
I try. I cannot think of any. So yeah, I guess that is a testament to how good the how forethought the American meme machine is.
It's good. Like whoever is churning them out, please continue staying funny because I need the laughter in my life. Like it's
Yeah,
so hilarious watching. And then like even just like on Instagram, like there's literally accounts that are famous and verified for just being meme pages. Like celebrities follow them and everything because they're just hilarious, hilarious.
I think one day when I finally get to the point where like I don't know if this will ever happen, but I do wonder like if will there ever be a day where I get to a point where I'm too old to think like I don't get this meme or like
I'm
these
scared of
this
that
trends.
day.
Yeah, it's like
I'm just like
I
I
mean
don't want to be old.
I do remember the. Do you remember the "It's a pigeon" meme or "Is this a pigeon" meme? It's
No,
like
I
a
actually
guy with a
don't
notebook
recall.
with his hand out, and it's like a butterfly, but he's asking, "Is this a pigeon?"
I do not recall said meme. No.
I remember seeing that meme for the first time, and I remember, should I know about this meme? Is this like is this a trend? Like, is this like am I behind the times?
Yeah, I feel you. That is my fear of like I mean, and that's the thing. I don't even use TikTok because I'm just like I hate social media already as it is. And I'm like, well, if I open TikTok, is that just gonna open another floodgate of just me scrolling through my phone for hours on end? But at the same time, I'm also like, I don't want to be that person that's so
Out of
like my cup is
touch.
full
Yeah,
that it's like, yeah, you aren't able to adapt and understand like new ideas.
it's. I think it's. I think we're still fine for a while because I think it's getting to the point where now.
We're fine for a while.
Well, it's interesting because like I don't know if you noticed this, but like the recycling of memes is now becoming a meme in and of itself. Like old memes I haven't seen, like um, let me think, like Scumbag Steve or like Unlucky Brian. Like I've seen those being more rotated around on Reddit of all places, and it's like, are we now getting so meta that we're recycling memes that were about meta? It's like, oh boy, it's like it's
I
gonna
mean,
be
like
a
even in music, people recycle like old tracks. They sample old music, and I'm just like, can you not ruin a good thing? Why are you ruining a good thing? It was good in the original. Now you're just making it something it doesn't need to be. But I don't know. Even movies, they just be coming out with the same thing, just real this time, and I'm just like, Disney, get it together. Okay, y'all need to hire some new folk, get some writers that are, I don't know, from the Caribbean, mix it up, do something. Just but I feel like it also just goes to show you how quickly humans get bored by things. As much as like, yeah, we also are always making things, like we get bored by things so quickly. Like I'm bored by Netflix already. It's sad.
yeah. I think the next frontier for that actually is um, Twitch streaming or just streaming in general, because it's kind of amazing how it's kind like, I think for me at least, like when I watch Twitch streams, it's a combination of watching a show, which is what Netflix or even like traditional cable TV is about, but also like watching a YouTube video slash like celebrity interview, because Twitch chat can ask questions about who's ever. I mean, think about the largest Twitch personalities out there, like Pokimane and like Ludwig and like Ninja. Like it's definitely a new broad category, and like also like there's so much on Twitch as well. You can watch like cooking videos. You can watch. I'd be surprised if Gordon Ramsay has a. Honestly, if Gordon Ramsay had a Twitch where he was just yelling insults at people, I would probably watch that. Not gonna lie.
That would be funny where he's just roasting regular cooks. Like, you're just like, make your favorite grilled cheese sandwich. And he's just like, bro, you use Kraft? Seriously? What do you think this is? Garbage. Throw it away. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, Twitch is. I mean, I think like in terms of big social media platforms I use, like Reddit, Twitch, Instagram. I don't use Facebook as much as I used to. I use Facebook mostly for Messenger and WhatsApp, but I think Twitch is probably what I've been consuming the most in pandemic, like compared to like previous
Interesting.
years.
Yeah, I don't really watch stuff on Twitch. I've been definitely into the podcast. I like watch a lot of YouTube, you know.
Well, I think podcasts and Twitch kind of serve a similar purpose, because for podcasts, like it's very much, and what we're doing right now, like we're asking questions, we're talking about things. And Twitch, you can kind of do a similar thing. I mean, you have
mm,
to kind of, I guess, for a lot of the big Twitch streamers, you have to donate a lot of money to get your question asked and like read by the street set streamer. But um, it's like that interactiveness of like, hey, it's not like a TV show where it's scripted.
yeah, is Twitch streaming all live? So like when you do ask a question, it is like in that moment, not like after they film something and then you can like make comments and then they would like get back to you in like a more YouTube channel fashion.
I think for that's probably what people think of when they say Twitch streaming. But I know for at least me, some of the smaller channels I follow, it's like you can send them a question on their email, regular old email, and then like they'll do like a Q&A stream where they like in live go through their email and say, hey, question from
Mm,
blah blah blah, and
I
like
see, I see.
along the way Twitch chat can say, hey, kind of branching off that question, can we ask you this? And it's like it's just amazing how we've gone totally to the part where it's like real time. Yeah, it's like real time
Yeah,
entertainment.
yeah. I could just see it getting more and more and more immersive to the point where like we live in a matrix within a matrix.
I do wonder the day when VR gets good enough where it's like, uh, this is a very common trope in like anime and manga, and even the comic books, right? It's like this VR game where it's so real life that the character, you
You
know,
forget,
you
yeah.
forget who you are. It's like that's like a common sci-fi trope. I wonder if like we'll ever get there, or even like even if we just get to a game where it's like good enough where it's like people start living in the game or like talking about it at work or even or like in real life. Because like I don't know about you, but I don't know that many VR games that have gotten super immersive yet. Where it's
I
like,
think they will get there. I think there's a lot of hurdles with VR that like consumers don't see about like one like making sure that you have internet connectivity that can stream, you know, making sure that the graphics are good enough that when you're that you cannot distinguish as a user what's real and fake. Like I think our brain does a really good job. Well, then again, is this world real? I don't know. So like, is it doing a good job? I don't know. But it gets to a point where you can convince your brain that something is real. That is something that I think like we haven't gotten there yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. These EEs and us CS and CEs are hard workers. If there's anyone to get it done, it's the engineers. And they're gonna do it. Let's be real. Like it's coming.
I don't know yet if it will come. Like I think I have. It's a thing in. I just like when I'm gaming. If I don't game as much as I used to, just because of time. But back when I was in high school, and I don't know if you gamed as much as I did, but League of Legends was big. I mean, what else was big? Overwatch was big. Like all these giant MMO games, and there is something to be said about like that social aspect that I love about MMOs.
Yeah.
But like when people say like, "Oh, MMOs are amazing," I'm like, okay, yeah, when you're playing with friends. But if you're playing in random lobbies, it's frustrating because you're playing with random strangers and there's no strategy involved. So it's like
Yeah.
at that point the game becomes a chore. But even in like gaming culture, it's like in Asia at least, like they have gaming cafes, they have
Yeah,
like
exactly. Where people don't leave. Like they
yeah,
stay there on days on end, peeing in bottles, just playing, playing,
just to
playing,
get
playing.
just to get their efficiency up 0.1%.
Which I'm like, okay, what about going to the gym and building your muscle mass 0.1%? But I think like it depends on the person. Like I think there are people that don't want to leave their house. Like they genuinely are maybe introverted, maybe they are autistic, and gaming gives them an opportunity to just engage with the world, and
It's
feel
also a
good
way
about
of life now.
themselves.
I mean, think about
Yeah.
how esports have blown up. It feels weird. Like I feel young enough where it's like, oh, like, yeah, I'm totally behind esports, but I feel old enough where I can remember a time when esports wasn't a thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And like the characters just get better and better. So it's like when are we gonna get to a point where your esport LeBron James is better than LeBron James? Or like is indistinguishable from LeBron James, or like they have enough material to feed an AI so that it talks like LeBron James, it behaves like LeBron James, it does things similar, but it's all an AI character. It's not real. It's a game character.
Yeah, I mean, even in AI, right? Like, what was it? I think it was 2018 when Google had that bot that beat like that South Korean Go champion. Can't remember it. Can't remember the
Yeah, I
name
know
of
what you're
that.
talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah,
And like
exactly.
Deep Blue beat Gary Kasparov back in the '90s, and like nowadays they have like bots now. I don't know which companies do it, but some of the AI companies now have bots that can beat League of Legends champions, and all they do is that they feed the bot video play of what that champion player has done, so that the bot can learn to play against that champion specifically. And it's like, yeah, I mean, clearly bots have gotten so good that they can beat human players. And I guess like for physical sports, you have the mechanical constraints behind. You need a robot that can push a basketball that far. But
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. Black Mirror scares me. So, I'm just like, "Oh no, I see it. I see it coming. I see it." I don't know. There's just like one episode where it was like a VR, but it was like a horror game, and like the dude literally was in the game, or at least he thought he was in the game for months. But in real life it had been like 10 seconds or whatever, and
was
he died like
this
he,
is a
like,
Black
killed
Mirror episode?
himself or something. Yeah, like, he ended up I don't know if he
Hmm.
died from, like, just mental, just, like, it was just too mentally taxing, or he, like but pretty much it was just too intense. Like, it was way, way, way too intense that it was just too much. But I've even like during my senior year, I had a class that was like a VR class, and one of the projects that one of like the other students in the class was doing was like a video game, a horror video game that was using like your neural feedback to like make the game harder. So like if you were getting stressed in the game, that would stimulate a response in the game where the game would know like, oh, the player is stressed, make it scarier, or like attract the predator of the game.
I feel like if that ever became a thing, it would be this case that the player should know, like the player obviously should know what they're signing up for if they're gonna
I
play said
agree.
game.
No, but there is technology like that where you can use like neural feedback. I don't know how far it is, but it's definitely like the technology exists. I just don't think it's been like fully incorporated into video gaming yet. But yeah, for me, my concern was like, when do you get to a point where, it's too much for the person and they can't like stop their own stress response? And then the game gets to a point where, yeah, like, yeah, they have a stroke because they're too scared now.
I mean, yeah, like you said, I think that yeah, that is a Black Mirror episode. It's I don't know the answer to that, honestly. We're getting on the deep end there, but it's I feel like that we're sort of on we're definitely not there yet, but it's definitely a real possibility that within our lifetimes we may have people who live more virtually than reality.
Which
I
is
genuinely
weird.
believe that. Yeah, it's like crazy
Like,
to
it's
think.
so weird to think that you would rather live in a fake world than live in the real world. But then again, like, what makes this world real?
I mean, it kind of blows my mind that like your normal graphing calculator has more raw computing power than the computers that took Apollo mission to the moon.
Exactly. That's insane.
And that's like what 69. So 1969 to 25th to 2021. That's 42 years. No, 52 years.
Still a
So 50 years
lifetime.
basically. Yeah, it's like what's 50 years from now? What's gonna be available for humanity to use?
I mean, Elon's building that Neuralink, you know what I mean? Where like you can literally like put in chip a computer into your brain to do stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised, And like that's not like the only work that's being done with like deep brain stimulation and like, bioprosthetics that use like your waves to like move your prosthetic arm and like just even the advancements. I'm not sure if the company's called Dynamics, but like they build insane robots that like I don't know, they like have these robot dogs that just
Yeah,
are insane, just straight up insane. Like it literally looks like the demon robot dogs from the Black Mirror episode that be hunting humans down. Like it
that
is
was on
so
social media. Yeah,
crazy
I think
how
didn't
alike
Charlie
it is.
I think Charlie Brooker got inspired by Boston Dynamics to make that episode because he saw the video.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, but like just seeing those robots is it's just mind blowing. Like what the hell? Like humans are incredible though. Like the fact that we're the ones building this stuff though, I'm just like how?
that reminds me. Did you ever see the episode where I think it's like I think the main character husband passes away, so she sends all of her his text
Yep.
messages and like videos to like this
Seen
company,
it.
and they make an android bot that looks like him and talks like him. I
Yes.
remember look there was like a startup, I cannot remember the name of it, that tried to do the exact same thing. The idea was that you would give the startup all of your deceased family members like text messages, and they would make a text bot that would
And you
sound
could
just like the
talk to
person.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk to it. And I just remember thinking,
That's crazy.
either they saw the Black Mirror episode and they thought, okay, that's a great idea, actually, without unironically, and they decided to make a company, or they just have no social awareness on like social media because people started calling out them on social media, being like, "This looks just like the Black Mirror
I'm
episode."
telling you, Black Mirror is just predicting the future. Like even the one that they did where it was like the social media app ranking thing where it's like if you curse
Oh,
or
the
if
social
you were
credit
like
score. Yeah,
yeah, if you were like mean or aggressive, like someone could reduce your social score and that would impact your ability to like get housing, to board aircrafts, to do all sorts of things. Like they were saying China already has a system like that where it is like socially curating like a credit score of some kind that comes with perks and benefits and I'm just like, hella sus.
it's. I don't think it's so much shocking. Rather, it's kind of logical. Like that's the next logical step.
You're like, it makes sense. And like it's
Well, it
supposed to
makes
go
sense
that
why they
way.
would do it. It makes sense
Yeah, it
why they
makes
would
sense.
do it. It's like I can understand that. I don't know. I don't think I would sign up for it, but it's like, oh, I mean, I get why they're doing it.
Yeah, I
But
could see why. But that's the thing. It's like if you can justify it, like people will buy into that. You know what I mean? Because they can justify it. Like
I mean, it's not just. I mean, just think about how much technology has pervaded our lives. Like,
it's a
I
lot.
genuinely do not remember a time because I don't remember a time when I didn't have a device connected to the internet.
I agree.
Well,
Even when I was a child, I had like a computer in my house, like a old computer. Don't get me wrong, dial up was not cute, but I was still able to access the internet. Exactly.
Yeah, what did people do at work before computers were a thing?
Go to libraries. I don't know. I feel like life was less stressful though, because like you don't have all this information constantly bombarding you to make you feel like insecure.
What did architectures like? What did architects use other like if they didn't have like you know CAD modeling systems? Like, they did everything
Draw
by
it.
hand? That's just crazy to me.
Yes, like people used to draw maps by hand. Like electrical engineers and MEs would draw their CADs by hand. I couldn't imagine having to do that. Mm-mm. Without LT
Could you
Spice,
imagine trying to build like a skyscraper without computers?
I mean, they'd built the
That
pyramids.
that's just crazy to me. Like, yeah, but like it's just so much faster now with computers.
I feel you. And it's like it's only going to get faster and faster because information is just everywhere all the time. I think what we're getting better at is processing and like yeah, processing and analyzing and then making decisions based on lots and lots of information. And there are like what, 7, maybe like 8 billion humans on the planet. That's a lot of data points generated every single day to tell us like where we're going and what we should be doing and what's not working and what is working. But humans are weird, man. It's insane how we do all this stuff.
I do think though one thing I wish I didn't rely on technology so much on was like directions because
GPS.
I don't know. It's just I do
I
remember
wouldn't
when I
know where to go.
was. It is sometimes nice to open up a map and like problem solve your way out to figure out where you are, and like realize, oh, I gotta take Highway I-95 and go down, exit 16. It's like okay, or I could just use Google Maps and just have them tell me where to go.
But it's like, I mean, it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, how much do you like? Because obviously, like, there's an argument of like humans are super smart. Like, we have all this information on the internet, but yeah, we don't know anything about our surroundings anymore. So, like, I couldn't walk out into the wilderness and be like, is this berry safe to eat or will it kill me in like 0.5 seconds?
I feel bad for the first person who had to try out the berry and died from it, and then I wonder who was the next person who
Witness.
saw. Yeah, like just imagine like the first person who ate a berry was like, and like they either got really sick from it or they died, and then who was like the person who was like, I wonder if I try that slightly different berry, I wonder what happens then. It's like I
Yeah.
don't know if that's a
How many
smart thing to
humans
do.
died before we knew we could eat blueberries and raspberries and not, poisonous stuff? Exactly. Exactly.
And just like
I
think of
couldn't
like after the
imagine.
second person that got like sickly from that other different type of berry, think about the third person who was like, you know what, these two guys didn't make it, but I know I can make it. I'm gonna try this slightly different berry instead.
But it's like even like can you imagine being the first human to okay, discovering land is a relative, experience, but like could you imagine like being if you were Christopher Columbus, a different Christopher, and you were just sailing across the gigantic ocean, which mind you, half of your friends back home are telling you Christopher, the planet is flat. You're just going to fall right off the edge. If you go that way, like, why are you doing that? And you go anyways, have no clue what's in store. It's not like you have, DoorDash that can just bring you food on your ship. And then you find like these countries that no one on from where you're from has ever been there. And they're super beautiful and have been like significantly untouched by man compared to, how the world looks today. What that must have been like to like can you imagine like stumbling on the Caribbean by chance before it was like anything, just islands? Like that's so beautiful. Like
Honest,
I'm
I don't
jealous of
think I
that.
could. Reason being is because like we kind of know what the world is. Like we have modern satellite imagery, right? We know what the world is. Like even if we don't know, or I don't know, like what specifically this spot in like the Brazilian Amazon, like what's at that spot. I know that hey, the Brazilian Amazon is like north,
A
south, east, west
place.
of this point. So it's like I know this is part of the Brazilian Amazon. So it's not like there's. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of specific stuff to discover because of like satellite imagery and like the modern world. We kind of know generally that oh hey, South America is south of North America, or hey, if you keep going south, you're gonna hit Antarctica. It's like we know what the general brushstrokes are. There's no blank spot on a map anymore.
Yeah, I feel you. Now it's just to fill out the blank spots of the cosmos.
Yeah, I
Do you
mean,
think there are aliens out there,
I
Christopher?
mean,
Do
if
you
you look
think
at the
there
news, there's a Jeff Bezos and um, Richard Branson are going to space now. So you
they
never
already
know.
went. They've been to space. They gone. They went and they've come back. Okay? They've already done it. They've been to space.
Would you take a space flight?
So I've always wanted to be like when I was a kid, I really wanted to be an astronaut. Like I was so fascinated by like the Apollo mission and then going to the moon and like the International Space Station. Like I was literally heartbroken when NASA said they weren't sending people into space anymore. Like I would like that literally was the reason why I chose not to be an astronaut because I was like, well, if they're not sending people into space, then what's the point of being an astronaut? But I would love to go to space. I would love to be able to see the planet, just to see it and not be on it. As much as I don't know how I would feel about like the actual rocket ship launch, I feel like that would scare me a bit. But I think like the opportunity to see how vast the universe is an experience that will humble humanity because I think like on earth like we like say like oh you look different from me or oh I don't agree with you or oh I hate you because of this or I don't like you because of that, but it's like we're all on one marble. You know what I mean? Like it's still we're on one marble. It's just us. Like we literally live in paradise, and we pollute it, we destroy it, we fight each other, we argue with each other, we hurt each other. And I'm like, I think if people go to space, they would drop those differences because they realize like this is all we've got. Like this is our marble right here. But I don't know. Would you go
I'm
to
gonna.
space?
Well, okay. I'm gonna answer your question, and then I'm gonna go back to sort of. I'm gonna play the
Okay.
pessimist to what you just said, but I think I would honestly. I don't know how I would do it. I think just
Same.
the just having the opportunity would be amazing. Um, like yeah, I think there's just seeing the Earth from a different perspective, and just also seeing a new planet would be amazing, and like seeing stars in such a quiet spot as well, because like you know you can one can go to the mountains and look at the night sky and like probably where it's the most quiet available spot on Earth, but in space where there is no sound, it would just be amazing to see the Earth with no sound,
Yeah.
just gaze at it. But uh, I will play the pessimist when I think about space exploration, if it'll bring world peace. But
I
I
don't know
don't know.
if it
I
would bring world peace. I don't think it necessarily would, but I think it would be a fresh perspective, like
I think
on
I'm
our
just more of
problems.
I think I probably look at like past examples, like for example Christopher Columbus. Right, it didn't turn out well for the natives. That's an understatement. And just to think
But
that
who are we conquering?
but I don't know. It's like if space became readily available, I think people would get greedy. People would
Of
start
course.
arguing, who has what, and then
Where should
that
we
would then
go?
come back to Earth, and maybe fuel more disagreement and conflict. But who knows?
Hmm.
Maybe space will go your way, where it's like we realize how humble and small and insignificant we are, and then we bond over our commonalities more than our differences. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm
But my
not
thing
a
is like, what are
I'm
we
not a space
conquering?
expert.
I know. I'm like, but the thing is like, okay, the only planet we can really conquer is Mars because Jupiter is not even a terrestrial planet. It's not like we could land on Jupiter or like any of those other further out planets. So it's like, who are we conquering? And
I
I
think I
hope,
see it more like if somebody struck oil or somebody struck uh, a new horizon. It's like, oh,
mm,
there's so much of it. I want to
we
like,
want
oh,
it
there's
all.
yeah, yeah, like that's not so much like the sort of greedy aspect of like we want it all, but it's like, oh, there's so much of it. It's like I can use it. It's like
Mm, yeah. But I guess, like, because you didn't answer this question, do you think there are aliens out there roaming the cosmos?
define alien.
A consciousness that can move its physical location.
Yeah, yeah. If you were gonna ask me, do you believe that something that looks like ET exists? I would probably be a
Oh
bit more
no, not
skeptical.
necessarily like ET. Like if for all I know it's an amoeba, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
like
just
an
a slime ball that's just plooing across whatever little thingy it's on, or maybe it's like an ant on a comet, or I don't know.
I think wasn't isn't there a hypothesis that like the first cells slash bacteria was brought by asteroids during
That's
like
what
the
I heard.
first billion years of Earth? It's like a
Yeah, like because
theory.
they've been smashing. It was smashing the planet. There's so many things that
And then
could
like one
have.
of these rogue meteors brought bacteria to Earth, which eventually became
What if
eukaryotes,
there are
and
other
eventually,
humans, like older humans, like you said, like what if like we got that bacteria from that human planet and they're just somewhere else far away, and
yeah, who
who
knows?
knows what they did.
I mean, it's a universe, right? It's limitless. So
Do you think that there is a multiverse? So like there's other versions of me and you also having conversations at this very moment, just
I
in other dimensions.
I genuinely don't have a yes or no because my idea is that does it matter?
I guess it doesn't matter. It's not like, but if you could meet said Christopher, would you want to?
I mean, that gets into like the what is it? Like the grandfather clock sort of thing. It's like, well, is that truly me? Because it's like it's not me, obviously,
I
because
feel
it's
you.
a different me. It's a different me. So it's a different me, still me. It's like I don't know. I just until I guess I until somehow if he comes through a portal, an interdimensional portal, and then I realize, oh wait, that kind of looks like me, but it isn't me.
It'd
It's
be
like
your
okay,
twin. Yeah.
then I'd be interested in answering the question. But until that happens, I'm like, doesn't really matter to me.
I guess. I saw like this interesting like post. They were like, I wonder if aliens are just billionaires from other planets, you know, seeing like our first humans that went into space. Yeah, it was astronauts from government programs, but now you're seeing like people of significant wealth can afford to have these types of experiences because they have significant wealth. But I don't know. It is an interesting thought.
I feel like if we ever saw an alien, hmm. Actually, no, I take that back. I don't know what we would do if we ever saw it. What would you do if you ever saw an alien?
It depends on what kind of, is it like a predator alien that's trying to Christopher Columbus us? You know what I mean? Or they're trying to enslave us? Or is it more of like an ET situation where brother is just, you know, trying to make it back home and he's coming in peace? So I think it depends on the intention. If it was coming for the sake of like helping us realize the error in our ways, I'd be like, "Sure, what's up? Tell me what is going on. Give us the secrets, you know, to how to get off this planet." But if they're trying to kill us, then
Mhm.
that's rough. That's all I
Yeah,
can
I think
say.
I have pretty much yeah do the same thing as you do. But I mean, I don't know if we would ever. It it would be funny to me if like the Predator movie was just how it played out. Like if
I
that became
mean,
real
I
life.
wouldn't blame the alien because I'm like, humans do the exact same thing. Like we're predators to ourselves. You know what I mean? Like you said, like Christopher Columbus, it wasn't good for the natives. You know what I mean? So it's like clearly we have this mentality of conquer, but I don't know. I assume like our generation is less of a colonizer mindset and more of like a let's be in a utopia. I don't know, like a
Yeah, I would agree with that.
let's
And I think it
all
has to
like
do
just
with the fact that the world is more connected than ever. Like there's no new
true.
continent to find. I mean,
It's
I don't know.
true.
Perhaps there's a missing lost civilization under Atlantis and I'm just
Ooh,
being ignorant to it,
no,
but
there was New Zealand. I think they found like new landmass or like a new continent that's like a part of New Zealand or attached to New Zealand that's like underwater or something like that. So
is that a land
they
is that a
are.
continent though? Like it
I
was
don't know
above
what it
water
was.
once. And that kind of reminds me of Doggerland. It sounds more like Doggerland to me. I don't know if you know Doggerland.
Mm-mm, I do not.
So Doggerland, it's not like an actual land. It's just it's a name assigned to a piece of um okay, how do I describe Doggerland? Okay, so basically
Like
Doggerland is
land
just an
submerged
it's just a
underwater.
landmass and it's been called Doggerland. So what it was it was a piece of So if you're familiar with European geography, are you like, do you know the area like west of Norway but east of England and like north of the Netherlands? That sort of like sea area.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So that part of that sea used to be above ground, but I think 45,000 years ago,
Mm.
50,000 years ago. But apparently, when they were looking at the topography of it, they realized, oh, it flooded very quickly and very violently. It wasn't like gradual sea rise. Like there was a flood that happened in that giant general area. And so
Mm.
when fishermen are out in that area, whether they're Dutch, Norwegian, or Irish or English fishermen, they will occasionally bring up mammoth carcasses or mammoth bones. So clearly, this large animals were living in the area, and they have pulled up like records of like human tools and like
That's cool.
skeletons of wild animals that were clearly butchered and eaten by whether it was Neanderthals
Humans,
or no,
yeah.
that this would have been humans. And so it was clear like this area was inhabited, but why did it flood so quickly and why did that happen? The geological reason is sort of up in the area, but it's kind of interesting
Mm.
how like essentially the Great British Isles were once just the high point of a larger landmass that was connected to mainland Europe.
Interesting. Interesting.
And so that's what
Yeah,
Doggerland. Doggerland's just the name of the area, but
I see, I see. Because it's like
it's
technically connected, but it's just flooded.
underwater. Yeah, because sea levels have risen since then. And what was the UK was essentially just the highest point of Doggerland.
Mm. I guess
So,
I wonder what's gonna happen if sea levels continue to rise and we have more situations where we have like aggressive mass flooding that forces humans to have to move to
well,
higher peaks.
say goodbye to Miami.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
It's gone.
I think
My
like
country would not exist.
I
Bye
think
bye.
most of Florida, a good part of the eastern seaboard would be gone.
I
Maryland
feel
would
like
have a
Seattle
larger
would be
bay.
gone. I feel like well,
Isn't
it
Seattle
is
fairly hilly though?
steep. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like it is steep, but I feel like some of the coast would fill in, because the Puget Sound would flood, I feel, immediately if we have like a certain I don't know. I'm sure they've thought of it.
I think probably Colorado would be safe because Denver and all is a mile high.
Yeah, a mile high. It's crazy how high up Colorado is. How I guess like because we've been talking for a hot minute, but what I guess like what are your plans, Christopher? Like what do you hope to do with the future? Where do you hope to be? Where do you see yourself like doing in the future? And how can people like learn more about you and like connect with you and like all that good stuff?
Well, I'm gonna answer the connecting part first because I know the answer to that. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, I don't know which one's the best way and which ones I check more. But how about this? Uh, if you want to chat, contact Nicole and she can point you to me.
Yeah, exactly. Send me an email, DM me. You know what's up. Just I'm available. Just find me.
And now the other part, which I'm trying to avoid, what am I going to do? Hmm.
It's all good. You don't need to have a plan. Just like I guess like what did you really want to be? I mean, I know you wanted to be an archaeologist and now we're an engineer, but like I guess like what are you like why did you become an engineer? I guess like what are you hoping to achieve with that? Like do you want to do a startup? Do you want to like I don't know, build some cool techie stuff?
I think more than anything, I just want to try new things. I know that's such a broad
No,
answer,
I think that's
but I
very
guess to make it more
valid.
specific is that probably one of my favorite times I've had in the past couple of years was when I was out in California and I didn't have a goal necessarily. Rather, I did have a goal, right? The goal was that I would finish up my work or whatever I was doing in California, and then I had like about 6 weeks at the very end, so like first half of November and then all of December. And the end goal was that my family was going to go to Las Vegas for a winter trip. And so between
Mhm.
where I was in San Francisco and 6 weeks later in Las Vegas, I had no obligations. I didn't have a plan. And I just thought, you know what? I'll just start walking south. And then this was when I was backpacking. And so I eventually just thought, you know what? Let's go to Las Vegas. And then I had some money saved up. And it wasn't so much travel, rather, it was along the way, right? Because Las Vegas was the next metropolitan area to get to Las Vegas. Did I say Las Vegas twice? I may have said
It
that.
doesn't matter.
Los Angeles to Las Vegas. But it was like, because I didn't have to worry about spending a lot of money because I wasn't like going to be doing all the expensive stuff in Los Angeles. It was like, okay, I'll just go to Los Angeles and see what turns up. Maybe there's a festival that day. Maybe, there's a convention the day I'm there, or over the weekend, maybe there's this big party going on. And I think just having that, that's probably what I enjoyed the most, is that having that general idea of, okay, this is point B at the end of my trip, but
Yeah.
everything else I have no obligations. I'm just going to see what comes up along the way. I
Yeah.
think that's something I want to try keep doing on in my life. It's like, yeah, whether it's a job opportunity or whether it's like a my family wants to take a trip to somewhere, or hey, my friends just moved to the city, do they want to hang out for a month or two? It's like, yeah, it's just, I know what the end goal is, but between now and then I'd rather just leave it up and see what comes along the way, because I think that's when I had the most fun. Because when I was in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, I went to some restaurants that I had never seen before because I just walked down the street and saw, hey, that's a good restaurant. Let's go inside. Or I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go hike up to the Hollywood sign tonight just because I have nothing else to
Why
do.
not?
And I actually met a person along the way, and we're friends. And then she was also from the DC area, so if I had never gone that day, who would have known what had happened? It's like just
Exactly.
that whole idea of just, you know, I have an end goal. Don't know what's in between. Let's just see what happens. I think that's like the best balance of like not so much a vacation, but just living your life in general. Is like having goals is great, but there's no need to look over the uh, hairs and minute details of it.
Yeah. I definitely think that that's great, a great outlook. Like being able to embrace the uncertainty of life, I think is a fabulous skill to have, because you really, like, we have no control over how things go. Like, as much as humans think we have plans, like COVID has shown, like, you just don't know what's happening in the world. And sometimes it's best to just go with the flow. And sometimes you have to just trust, that everything is going to be okay. Everything's going to work out. Like, you know where your destination A is, you know where your destination B is, but let the universe figure it out. Go with the flow. Like you said, you don't know what's waiting for you along the journey until you just take a leap of faith. And that's so awesome. And I think, like, usually when folks do that, you realize, like, you do have a greater time because you weren't so caught up on, like, well, it has to go this way. Like, oh, I
Yeah,
didn't meet that milestone, or I'm a failure, or blah, blah, blah. When it's like, no, like, life is not supposed to be a perfectly linear thing. It's very much just crazy randomness.
yeah. You may take a step forward, two steps back. You may go to a side route. As long as you know where you want to be and you're making your way there, it's just, yeah, whatever comes your way. It's just how life is. You never know what it'll throw at you, like you said. So take it all in stride and see what happens next. And that's for everybody listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Chatterbox. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to show your support by subscribing to this podcast and leaving us a review. Follow us on Instagram at the.chatterbox for teasers and updates.